Hey everybody, welcome to the School of Social Value. I am your professor for the day, Alan, and today we are talking about how do we validate a business idea? How do we know whether a business idea is a good idea? And we are going to be using the proxy of hand sanitizer production, and we're going to be looking under the hood as to how our looking at that opportunity has informed our now ability to move and execute against that plan. So let's just reiterate for everybody at home, our objective, our primary objective as a business, whenever we're looking at opportunity validation, is to be basically weighing out what's going to make the company the most money. Once again, this isn't nefarious. This isn't about someone becoming extremely wealthy at the expense of everybody else. This is about creating community-based wealth, and so we want to produce profits. And in that sense, really what we have to do is whenever there's an idea, let's say in the case of hand sanitizer, we have to look at the risks, the rewards. We have to look at the way we're validating this opportunity. And the first question I think always has to come down to, is there demand? I can't stress enough the wealth of experience I have in trying to create a new category where demand did not yet exist. That category in the early days of this company was a category by the name of fruit wine. Now, we prefer to call it wine made from fruits or wine from fruits. It's not even technically wine in some senses because that's so grape derived. But the fact of the matter is trying to introduce a new product, one that there's no demand for, is extremely challenging. And so one of the things we've learned as a business is let's just take the opportunities that are in front of us where demand already exists or where there's a growing demand that is coming to the market. And I think it's pretty obvious hand sanitizer has that demand. Go on to Google right now, type in hand sanitizer, and see if you can find any for purchase. You're pretty much not going to be able to find any. And that just goes to show you there's such a demand that the supply cannot keep up. So it makes for a kind of no-brainer opportunity for FruitCraft. But that doesn't necessarily mean we jump right in. There's a question of how long is this going to last. There's been all sorts of things we've looked at as we've looked at the risks associated with the opportunity. And so what we found is that, especially in our past, we've done this. You can overinvest into inventory. You can overinvest into a manufacturing system, and you might not have the sales that are continued from there on out. Case in point, when we got into Whole Foods with a $200,000 opening purchase order, we gave them enough product to last them essentially a year. And we were unable to predict whether or not they'd maintain that level of distribution in future months. We assumed that they would. That was a mistake. It ended up creating tons of inventory for us. And I don't want to get into the same situation here with hand sanitizer. For all we know, I've read these reports, every large distillery from any vodka producing distillery, essentially huge conglomerates, Tito's, whatever, they've all converted their lines on their production into hand sanitizer manufacturing. And the only reason they're not to market right now is because there is a shortage on packaging. So, as we look at how this market's going to evolve, we are looking at the fact that this is a short-term opportunity. Is FruitCraft going to get into long-term, permanent-based hand sanitizer manufacturing? The answer to that is probably no. But is there an opportunity for us now to evaluate where we have inroads with suppliers and the know-how to put this together and make a little bit of profit in the meantime? And then the answer to that is a resounding yes. And that's because the rest of these risks get addressed with what we're doing. So, last thing we want to say here is essentially when we are collectively looking at ideas within the company, whether it's hand sanitizer or any other opportunity, we want to see if it's going to make us money, but we want to make sure at the same time that there's not going to be negative outcomes, negative consequences by doing things too short term. So, we evaluated that in this context. We didn't recognize any negative outcomes. As a matter of fact, it's going to provide hours for people who didn't have them. It's going to keep the lights on here. There's no negative outcomes, so we continue to move forward with that. But then we do have to continue to look at the costing, the pricing, and all that kind of stuff. We will be getting into an in-depth analysis of that in the next video. But as part of your feasibility study, you cannot ignore that core reality. And so we did, of course, do some math. We looked at how much we would be able to sell a gallon of hand sanitizer for, and we ended up looking at how much that would cost. And as long as there was a profit margin to be had there, we continue to look at that opportunity, and we can validate it and say that it is a good one. So let's leave that there with the idea validation. At the end of the day, the reason why I'm bringing this to you guys is when you're an entrepreneur, when you're starting your own business, or whether you're an employee in an existing business, you're likely at some point going to have an idea. And the big question is, are you going to waste someone's time by bringing that idea to their attention? Is this a good idea or is it not a good idea? And the fact of the matter is, of course, if there's a path for it making money for the company, then we can say it's a good idea, and there's no negative outcomes. That's also going to be a good situation to be in. And now, of course, lastly, there is something in economics called opportunity cost. And what does that mean? That means, yes, we can make some money by doing the hand sanitizer production, but what if the amount of time, the energy, the money we put into that, what could be put into something that could make us even more money? And so the perfect recipe here for looking at ideas within an organization like ours is to have all of the ideas thrown against the wall, and for us to somehow predict and evaluate each opportunity and say, you know what, we think this one's going to make us 50 grand, and we think this one's going to make us 100 grand, both of which will have no negative outcomes, so let's do the one that makes us more money. That's the way we're talking about making decisions. That's the reason why I'm producing this content in the series of videos, and that's what I hope the takeaway for you is as we continue to look at hand sanitizer as a proxy for our opportunities. In the next video, we will be talking about costing and pricing. We're going to inform everyone how we've done it in this particular instance, but there are a number of different ways of looking at how to do that, and I think it will provide a lot of value for our listeners. So until then, remember to do good and to share with others. Cheers.